Hare Krishna. Thank you all for joining. Again, today is a very important chapter, ninth chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. So without much ado, I think we should just jump into the subject matter. So we'll do the invocation prayers first, and those of you who know the invocation prayers can do it along with me. Om Agyantimirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshura Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guruho Shri Yutaha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. One should chant the holy names of the Lord in the humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street, more tolerant than the tree devoid of all sense of false prestige. One should be ready to offer all respect to others and expect none in return. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy names of the Lord constantly. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavate Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Shrinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtanaha Hridayantasto Hai Abhadrani Vidunoti Shuhit Satam Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Jnanati Yashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayat Ahetukam Yasyam Vai Shruyamananam Krishne Paramapurushe Bhaktir Utpadyate Pumsa Shokamoha Bhaya Apaha. So thank you all for joining. It is nice to see you all. Today we are trying to go through the 9th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto. Did you all have wonderful quiz before on Tuesday? Are you all enjoying it?
Yes, Prabhuji. It was very nice.
Okay, good. And have you read this 9th chapter already? Okay, few faces, few nods.
I read before.
Okay, wonderful. Wonderful. So this 9th chapter is about one of the personalities, Bhishma Dev. Bhishma Dev is one of the. How many of you know Bhishma Dev? Have you heard about him, Bhishma? Bhishma. So
Yes, Prabhuji.
Bhishma Dev is one of the 12 Mahajans. Anyone who knows 12 Mahajans? Even by chance? No?
Oh.
Okay. Okay. So the 12 Mahajans are Swayambhu Narado Shambhu. Swayambhu means Lord Brahma, one who is self-manifested. Swayambhu. Swayambhu Narado Shambhu. Narad Muni is the second Mahajan. Shambhu, Lord Shiva, is the third Mahajan. So Swayambhu Narado Shambhu Kumaro Kapilo Manuhu. Kumaro, 4 Kumaras. They are the one of them are 4th Mahajans. Kapil Muni. Manuhu, which means progenitor of the mankind, is called Manu. And we are right now under 7th Manu. There are 14 Manus, and we are right now in the middle, right on the 7th Manu. And the name of our Manu is Vaivasvat or Shraddha Dev Manu. So Swayambhu Narado Shambhu Kumaro Kapilo Manuhu Pralado Janako Bhishmo. Prahlad Maharaj, Janak Maharaj, and then Bhishma. So Prahlad, Janak, and Bhishma. Bhishma is one of the Mahajans. Balir Vaya Sakir Vayam. Bali Maharaj, which the story will come in 8th canto. Vayasaki, which means Shukdev Goswami, who is actually the author or the original speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam. And Vayam means Yamraj, or the Lord of Death. He is the 12th Mahajan. So really, so we are going to speak about the Bhishma Dev and his passing away. There is this chapter that you see in Bhagavatam is actually condensed. In one chapter, when you read, you might think that, actually the context is that after the whole Mahabharat war had finished, King Yudhishthir became the king. And after he became the king, his great-grandfather Bhishma, who was lying on the bed of arrows, was allowed, not was allowed, someone was in there. So Bhishma, who was lying on the bed of the arrows on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he was waiting. And, all the Pandavas then visit the grandfather, the great-grandfather, Bhishma Dev. And then, there is exchange of knowledge and information, wisdom. And then, Yudhishthira, Bhishma then prays to the Supreme Lord Krishna. And then Bhishma Dev, he passes away in presence of Lord Krishna. And then, everyone goes back home, and Yudhishthira Maharaj takes charge of the world. This is the theme of this chapter. So someone might think that this is what happened like in one visit. It's not true. This happened over a long period of time. But in Bhagavatam, it has been condensed. A great description about this is given in Mahabharat Bhishma Parva, which I had a great fortune of actually reading with some of the senior most brahmacharis in the Soho temple. And we read this over, I think, few months. So in this Bhishma Parva, it's explained that when the battle of Mahabharat actually finished, Yudhishthir Maharaj was extremely distressed, because with his eyes, a king is a father, king by his nature is a father. And a father is only happy when the subjects are happy, when the children are happy. So when he saw that there was such chaos and such despair that has happened after Mahabharat, women they had become widowed, children without their fathers, someone had brothers lost, and the whole world is in absolute chaos. And the heart of Yudhishthira Maharaj, who was already the most magnanimous and a compassionate king, it was feeling the pain of this loss of every single individual, whether he was from Pandava's side or whether they were from Kaurava's side. Now Yudhishthira Maharaj was the king of everyone. So he was not willing to take this responsibility of being a king, because he was very much pained in his heart. So everyone was trying to console him, Yudhishthir Maharaj, please become the king. So Vyas Dev, who is the father of Sukdev Goswami, who's, Sukdev Goswami is the author of Srimad Bhagavatam. Vyas Dev tried to convince Yudhishthir Maharaj. Then Arjuna tried to convince Yudhishthir Maharaj that, you are the rightful person. You did the right thing. It was beyond your control. These were tyrants that, had come to fight us. People gave them all kinds of reasonings. Draupadi was also there. Draupadi had also mentioned. But, just seeing the ocean of dead people and the blood that had been spilled in this battlefield. You know how many people died in the battlefield of Kurukshetra? Anyone? Guess?
64 million, roughly.
Yes, 6.4 million.
6.4 million, yeah.
That's quite a lot, right?
Yeah.
It's by far the highest numbers of people ever who have died within the span of 17 days across the world. So a lot of people died. And imagine seeing this death in front of your eyes. It's beyond words. It can make the best of the man most sober person. So Yudhishthir Maharaj couldn't get this out of his chest. He was thinking he was responsible. He was thinking he wanted to enjoy the kingdom, and that's why, whereas his intentions were always clear. So even Lord Krishna was trying to console Yudhishthir Maharaj, and Yudhishthir Maharaj couldn't be consoled. You just imagine the extent of distress Yudhishthir Maharaj was going through after this battle of Kurukshetra. And then, somehow or other, all the sages came together, and then they somehow convinced Yudhishthir Maharaj that, you must take up this scepter, because this scepter of punishment, this rod of punishment, this responsibility of being a king must be there. Otherwise, the kingdom, the world will be overruled by rogues and thieves, and you will become responsible for all of that. So he was pushed to become a king. And now imagine this scene, as they were walking past this fight arena towards their palace, where he was to be coronated, and there were people on both sides, and a lot of people were cheering. There comes one person from the crowd, and he points at Yudhishthir Maharaj and shouts, "You are the killer. You are the one who should die." So he really threw this on Yudhishthir Maharaj, who was already extremely, from his heart, he was completely devastated already. He didn't want this kingsmanship. He didn't want to become the king, but now he has one more reason with a person which is an ordinary person. For the kings, the words of ordinary person matters. Lord Ramchandra had, while traveling, he heard the words of ordinary villagers who were complaining that, oh, Mother Sita had been living for a very long time with a demon Ravan. So is she pure or is she not pure? This question, this village talk was heard by Lord Ram. And because Lord Ram was a perfect king, Maryada Purushottam, he gave it a due consideration. Similarly, Yudhishthir Maharaj's heart, which was somehow or other concealed by the instructions of the great sages, it started to bleed again profusely, just because of one person who from the crowd just jumped in and said, actually, you are the cause of all the despair and distress and the loss of the people. So imagine, in extremely difficult situations, people had to convince Yudhishthir Maharaj to become the king. He had actually lost all jest and enthusiasm to become a king. He was not a tyrant. So quite some time passed. He became a king, and quite some time passed. I forgot the exact number, but I don't know if it was 36 months or 36 years. Good amount of time passed, and in all that time, Bhishma Dev was still lying in the battlefield, lying on the bed of arrows in the battlefield. A good amount of time had passed. And one day, Krishna was elder to Bhishma Dev. So, sorry, Krishna was younger to Yudhishthir Maharaj, and Yudhishthir Maharaj was elder to Krishna. So it's a custom in Vedic system that the younger ones greet the elders with obeisances, or with the pranams. So every time Yudhishthir Maharaj visited Krishna, Krishna would pay obeisances to Yudhishthir Maharaj, although Krishna had no need because he's the supreme personality of Godhead, but still he would follow the custom. So once in the palace, Yudhishthir Maharaj happened to see Krishna. And so he visited chambers of Krishna. And as soon as Yudhishthir Maharaj entered the chambers of Krishna, the general practice was Krishna would stand up and pay obeisances or greet Yudhishthir Maharaj as a younger brother, younger cousin brother. That day, Krishna didn't stand up. He was on his couch, as you all in your couch, right? He was on his couch. And Yudhishthir Maharaj then saw that something was wrong. So he looked at Krishna and Krishna was eyes closed. So Yudhishthir Maharaj went to Krishna and said, Madhusudan, have I committed any offense that you are not responsive and you're not responding to my calls? Krishna didn't speak a word. Krishna was eyes closed still. So Yudhishthir Maharaj thought that I have committed a great offense actually. And that's why Krishna is just, not even thinking of me and he's not even responding to me. So Yudhishthir Maharaj actually started to weep. And, he begged forgiveness to Krishna. Now Krishna opened his eyes and, Yudhishthir Maharaj told him what happened, why are you not responding? What are you thinking so deeply about? And then Krishna said something extremely beautiful. Krishna said something so deep that you will find only in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. You will not find in any other book. So Krishna said that, my dear Yudhishthir, my apologies that I haven't responded to you because my mind was arrested. What did Krishna say? My mind was arrested. My consciousness, my thought process is all arrested. So he told that my very dear devotee Bhishma Dev, who is lying on the bed of arrows, is now so intensely meditating upon me that I can't move my existence anywhere. I am arrested at this point and I can't move my existence. Krishna says this. And so essentially, Yudhishthir Maharaj, Bhishma Dev was remembering Krishna so deeply, so intensely, that Krishna says this in Bhagavad Gita, one who is constantly serving me with love, I am in them and they are in me. What to speak of someone who is constantly thinking of Krishna? Similarly, you will see in future chapters, in future cantos, Prithu Maharaj, when he saw Krishna, he paid obeisances, he started to weep. He offered praise to the Supreme Lord. Supreme Lord gave benedictions. He was very happy. And then it was time for Supreme Lord to go. But Prithu Maharaj continued to pray him with increasing devotion. Same is the case with Chitraketu Maharaj. These devotees, when the Lord come, they pray to the Lord with increasing. And then Lord is using this word, even in those pastimes, that Lord got arrested. By what really? By the devotion of such devotees. So in this case also, Lord's mind was arrested, and then he instructed Yudhishthir Maharaj that let's go, Yudhishthir, now straight to the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where Bhishma's end moments have arrived. And let's not waste even a moment now. He is remembering me intensely, and I can't do anything. I just need to be with my devotee now. So then the whole family, it's like a moment in their life. They all get up, dressed completely with all haste, and then they go to the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And so in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Yudhishthir Maharaj and Pandavas go there, and now this chapter begins from that point. In this chapter, as soon as the Yudhishthir Maharaj and others are reaching there, they see their grandfather Bhishma Dev lying in this bed of arrows, fallen like a demigod, who was a fallen demigod. And they all pay obeisances to Bhishma Dev. They have this affection with Bhishma Dev. and they all started to weep at once. Seeing this condition of their grandfather, they couldn't stop, and they are all weeping, and they are all and Bhishma Devi is extremely happy to see them. And the Pandavas themselves, they on purpose dressed very royally, and they presented them very royally, because Bhishma always wanted to see them coronated. He always wanted to see them as the rulers of the world, with all opulence. So it gave lot of joy to Bhishma Dev, whose eyes was also overflowing with tears of love from his eyes, seeing his all his grandparents, sorry, all his grandchildren. And Bhishma Dev then starts to address them. And Krishna also at this point in time pays obeisances to Bhishma Dev. And Bhishma Dev, when he starts to address them, he says that, look, you guys have gone through so much pain in your life. And these words that Bhishma Dev is now saying to the Pandavas, he didn't say it before, because previously he was, a political ally of Duryodhan or the Kauravas. He wanted to say this always, but because he was taking the food of Kauravas, he couldn't express his extreme love for the man. But now there was nothing to stop him from pouring his heart out. And he says that, look, you guys have always gone through so much trouble in your life. And right from your childhood, you lost your father. And then, you were brought into this royal family where you were unwelcomed. Really, Duryodhan was trying to kill you, all brothers, all the time. And then when you grew up, there were all these situations you have to go through. Your wife was, disrobed, and you were exiled, and even you were tried to be burnt down. And so he's pouring his heart out to all the Pandavas. And then for a moment, he thinks about Kunti, their mother. See, when a son goes through a lot of pain, the mother goes double that pain. Only mothers will be able to tell you. Those mothers who are really attached to their children, they will be able to vouch, because these days, children grow up and they just disappear from the sight of parents when they grow up. So parents are a bit disconnected, or they don't get to know where their child is, whether they're eating or not eating, sleeping or not sleeping. But the parents are always thinking about them. So Bhishma Devi is also mentioning that, oh, think about Kunti Devi. She went double the pains. She lost her husband in the early youth, and then she has to see her children suffer every day when she came to the royal palace, and she has to see her, children being challenged, brought into this game of dice, and disrobed. Draupadi was disrobed, and they all exiled. So imagine the pain of Kunti Maharani. So he's very pouring his heart out, and he is also then consoling Yudhishthir Maharaj, because Bhishma Pitama, he knew the heart of Yudhishthir Maharaj, that he is a very sensitive person. He's like a father, and he respects his subjects. And he might be thinking that the war had actually happened because of him. So in some of the verses, in the 9th chapter, he is trying to console Yudhishthir that whatever you did, it was not because of your doing. It was destined to be like this. And also, it's not because of your impious activities in your previous life. You were treated unjustly, and so you had to go through this. So while he is consoling, Yudhishthir Maharaj, then Krishna asks, interestingly, Bhishma Pitama to give all the wisdom to Yudhishthir Maharaj, and to actually observe this great personality is passing away. The sages from all across the globe had assembled, all across the globe. So, you name it, who's who of the list was Parvata Muni, Narad Muni, Vyasdev. Vyasdev has written Bhagavatam. He is present there. Shukdev Goswami. There is Vashishta Muni. Vashishta starts from Ramayana times. And, even in Mahabharata is there. Even before Ramayana in Satyug, there is a name of Vashishta Muni. So Vashishta Muni was there. There was Vishwamitra Muni. And Prabhupada, he details about each of these munis. It will be very interesting if you manage to go inside and read the book. But some of these munis didn't stay in India, by the way, for your information. They were from Europe. So, this old understanding of Vedic India is very different. The world in those times were different. The Rishi Munis who had contributed into the Vedic literature, they were from all across the globe. They were purified souls. There is a mention of Parvat Muni, Angira Muni. Angira Muni is the one who went to Chitraketu Maharaj, when he had no son. So he's seeing his condition, he blessed him to have a child. And then, so all of these Munis, Dhaumya Rishi is one who instructed Pandavas themselves when they were exiled. In every family or a householder is supposed to have a family priest who can guide them. In the modern day, it's an unfortunate situation. A lot of people don't have a family priest, but a family priest is supposed to be a Vaishnav family priest, not like an ordinary someone, you go to the temple, hire them for 50 pounds, and then, you just do some yagyas and that's it. No, family priest is supposed to do those things, but also give you guidance in your life. And, some of the mentors do this active role, but you can also have a family priest who can. So Dhaumya Rishi was the family priest of. So imagine, Supreme Lord is assembled in this assembly, and he is asked Yudhishthir Maharaj to get all the wisdom from Bhishma Dev, and people who are best of the Munis and Rishis who can travel time, who have been there from Satyug and Treta Yug, all the great personalities were there to listen from Bhishma Dev. Therefore, Bhishma Dev, you can understand, what kind of understanding, what kind of devotion Bhishma Dev has, that he's one of those Mahajans. Therefore, he's one of those Mahajans. So this happened over a period of 54 days, I think. They would come every morning. They would, Yudhishthir Maharaj asked a lot of questions about the Kshatriya class, the Vaishya, the Shudra, the duties of the men, the duties of the women. Let me just go through some of the purports before we move. So this is on chapter 9. I think I'll go to purport. If you're looking at the purports, you can go to 1.9.9 to begin with. Actually, 1.9.8. So you can see some of the Rishi Munis there. Kashyapa, Angira, Sukdev Goswami. And in 9.7, you will see the names of some of the other Rishis also. And you read their descriptions. It's just beautiful. It's amazing. Badranayar, Bhadrashav, Parshuram or Renuka Sutta, and Vasishta, in Indra Pramada, Trita and Gristamad, and Asita and Devala. Asita and Devala are also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. So coming back to 1.9.9, here it says Bhishma Dev, who was best among the 8 Vasus, received and welcomed the great and wonderful, powerful rishis who were assembled there, for he knew perfectly all the religious principles according to time and place. Bhishma Dev, by his existence, he was a great Kshatriya warrior. A Kshatriya is supposed to respect the rishis, the Brahmanas, the rishis when they come. But now Bhishma Dev was lying in these bed of arrows. So how could he welcome these amazing people? So Bhishma Dev knew how to welcome saintly persons even amongst the worst of the situations. By moving his head and paying obeisances in the mind. And so he actually, and so Prabhupada in this purport, he's writing that there are different climates and situations in different parts of the world. And if one discharges his duties to preach the message of the Lord, he must be expert in adjusting things in terms of time and place. Because Bhishma Dev adjusted his way of offering obeisances to all these great munis according to his personal situation at that point in time. So Prabhupada is making a practical point that a preacher should, according to time, place, and circumstance they are in, they should package their message. Prabhupada is not saying change the message, but packaging the message. Moving further, I think we will go to 9.11. Seeing the sons of Maharaj Pandu were sitting silently nearby, overtaken with affection for their dying father, seeing this, Bhishma Dev congratulated them with feeling. There were tears of ecstasy in his eyes, for he was overwhelmed by love and affection. So here, here essentially Prabhupada in his purport is mentioning later on when the Pandavas were grown up, they were cheated. So here it's mentioning that, how they were constantly put into tribulations. So we are reading 9:11. And then 9:12 is about consoling Yudhishthir Maharaj. In the purports, in this 12th verse, Bhishma Dev is just consoling Yudhishthir Maharaj because Yudhishthir Maharaj was not wanting to become the king. The background context is Bhishma Dev knew that this person is a gentle person and he doesn't want to become king. So he's trying to console Yudhishthir Maharaj. Please. Then we move on to 18th verses. So here, 18th verse, Sri Krishna is no other than inconceivable original personality of Godhead. He is the first Narayan, the supreme enjoyer. But he is moving amongst the descendants of King Vrishni, just like one of us, and he is bewildering us with his self-created energy. Before he started to tell Yudhishthir Maharaj about all the knowledge and everything, what happened is Bhishma Dev was on this bed of arrows. He was in excruciating pain. When you are in excruciating pain, Krishna asked Bhishma Dev to tell Yudhishthir Maharaj of all the wisdom. And Bhishma Dev looked at Krishna and said that, look, Krishna, I am in this extremely painful state. And in this painful state, the mind is not in full capacity. You lose your capacity to actually think clearly or remember. Your memory is bewildered because of the pain. So Krishna could understand this. And Krishna did one amazing, beautiful thing, which he does with other devotees also. Krishna touched the hand of Bhishma Dev. And as soon as Krishna touched the hand of Bhishma Dev, and again, this portion is not in this Bhagavatam piece, but this Bhagavatam is a condensed version from the Bhishma Parva of Mahabharata. As soon as the Krishna touched the hand of Bhishma Dev says, all my pain is now gone. My mind is in full clarity, and I can remember everything from all the knowledge that I have ever learned in my life. So, Bhishma's pain just disappeared just by the touch of hand of the Supreme Lord. Krishna also touched another devotee like this. Who was he? Anyone knows? It will come again.
Is it Lord Brahma?
Lord
Brahma.
Lord Brahma. Where was that?
When he shook his hands.
When he in which canto? If you could.
Sorry, I can't remember exactly which canto.
I think it's Dhruva Maharaj when the road appeared in front of him. He could.
Wonderful. Yes, Dhruva Maharaj is a definite example. With Dhruva Maharaj, when he saw the Lord, he was a young boy, 5 years old, couldn't speak. He wanted to glorify the Lord. He had this desire. So the Supreme Lord touched his conch on his head. Conch, when you blow the conch, all inauspiciousness goes away. So Dhruva was empowered to, in unlimited quantities, to glorify the Lord. And that's why he, started speaking beautiful prayers from his heart. So similarly, Bhishma was touched. And when Bhishma was touched, Bhishma says that, all his pain is disappeared. His mind is very clear. He can remember everything. And then he starts to instruct. And he's the first thing. Now see, Bhishma is a Mahajan. And the first thing he's saying is that Krishna, Eshavaya Bhagwan Sakshat, that this person, Krishna, he is directly the Supreme Lord. He's saying, Bhagwan Sakshat, Adyo Narayana Apuman. Adyo means is the first, Adi Narayan, the original Narayan. If you all remember, a few weeks ago, I showed to you this chart where you had this, from Krishna, there is Balram, from Balram, this 4 levels, which is Sankarshan, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Vasudev, and from Sankarshan comes Narayan, and then there is another Chaturvyu, and then comes the second Narayan. So here Bhishma Dev is himself saying, this person in front of you is no ordinary man. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly, and he's actually the original and first Narayan. Mohan Maya Lokam, he's the one who bewilders people. You know, Krishna will bewilder people. So when Krishna was present, Duryodhan couldn't understand that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Gudas Charati Vishnushu, and he's just walking amongst you like an ordinary person. You know, amongst the Vrishnis, he's moving, and you guys are not able to understand that actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original Narayan, the first one, he is amongst you. So he says this, and he prays. He offers his praise to the Supreme Lord. He then wants to. He says in 19 that, O King, Lord Shiva, Narada, and sage among the demigods, the Kapila, the incarnation of Godhead, all know very confidentially about his glories through direct contact. So these people, they basically know, the Mahajans, they know. This is what Bhishma Dev is saying, but he knows only 3 Mahajans here. If you read the thing, he says that Lord Shiva, Narada, and Kapila. So Bhishma Dev knows these 3 Mahajans. And I think the main reason being the flavor. Prabhupada in this purport, he explains that there are different flavors of a person. So let me just read some portions. He says, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, one of the great acharyas in the modern age, explains that Anubhava, or the glory of the Lord, is first appreciated by the devotee in ecstasy, manifesting the symptoms of perspiring, trembling, weeping, bodily eruptions, etc., which are further enhanced by steady understanding of the glories of the Lord. Note the word steady. Such different understandings of the bhavas are exchanged between Yashoda and Lord, binding Lord by the ropes, and in the chariot driving by the Lord in exchange of love for Arjuna. These glories of the Lord are exhibited in his being subordinate before his devotees. So here, Lord becomes subordinate, and this is one of the bhavas. And that is another feature of the glories of the Lord. Shukdev Goswami and the Kumaras, although situated in the transcendental position, became converted by another feature of the bhava and turned into pure devotees of the Lord. So Shukdev Goswami and 4 Kumaras, they are not under this bhava which Arjuna is, which the Bhishma Dev is. Krishna becomes subordinate to Yashoda Mai, Nand Maharaj, Arjuna. Krishna became charioteer of Arjuna. And you know how the charioteers would move left and right in those days, right? The driver, the owner or the rider of the charioteer, he would with his right leg kick on the right side, on your right side, to tell you that you have to move chariot to the right. And they would kick you on your left side with their legs to tell you that, because the noise was so much that you couldn't hear left and right. So they would kick you. So Lord Krishna was constantly taking kicks from Arjuna. So, anyways, this is like how more subordinate you can become, to what extent, where you are accepting constant kicks from your devotee for like 17 days, from morning 7 a.m. till evening 5:30 p.m. It's just so in this again says Shukdev Goswami and Kumaras, although situated in transcendental position, became converted by another feature of the bhava and turned into pure devotees of the Lord. Tribulations imposed upon the devotees of the Lord constitute another exchange of transcendental bhava between the Lord and the devotees. The Lord says, I put my devotee into difficulty, and thus the devotee becomes more purified in exchanging transcendental bhava with me. Placing the devotee into material trouble means delivering him from illusory material relations. Illusory material relations. That's why the Lord puts a devotee into difficulty. When the relationships are not based on the spiritual platform, it generally tends to illusion you. And if there are difficulties, then people, they have an opportunity to reach out to Lord. Not saying that they will reach out, but they have an opportunity to reach out to the Lord. So do you know any examples wherein the Lord had put devotees into tribulations?
The Pandavas were
The
Kunti
Pandavas.
Maharani.
Wonderful.
Kunti
Kunti
Maharani,
Maharani.
he says
Draupadi?
is Kunti Stuti.
Yes.
Gajendra.
Gajendra. Okay, Gajendra was not put into difficulty by the Lord.
Okay.
Draupadi.
Draupadi was also not put into difficulty by the Lord.
Prahlad Maharaj.
Prahlad Maharaj was put into difficulty. Prahlad Maharaj says to Narsingadev, in fact, that you eternally I am your devotee, yet you have put me into this material world, but please don't give me material enjoyments. You know, you are eternally my Lord, and you have put me into these difficulties, but don't give me any more material enjoyments. Bali Maharaj is a very good example. He was put into difficulty like in a very deceptive fashion. First and foremost, Lord became a dwarf and came as if, behaving like he's a young brahmachari and, he's begging alms. Clearly, Lord knew that he was to cheat Bali Maharaj. And Lord says himself that even I cheated him and I gave him false religion, yet this person didn't move from truth. And I declare that he is Satyavak, meaning he's always truthful. He's an honest man. I couldn't win over him. And today I declare that Bali has win over Maya, because this person is an honest man. He says he's a Satyavak. So he was put into difficulty by the Lord. Bali Maharaj was put into difficulty by Lord. Prahlad Maharaj was put into difficulty by Lord. Chooses very specific devotees who he will put into difficulty. And that is a bhava, a relationship which devotees exchanged with the Lord. Okay, so moving further, in this pastime of Bhishma Dev, he is expressing that, O king, that personality whom out of ignorance only you thought to be your maternal cousin, your very dear friend, well-wisher, counselor, messenger, benefactor, etc., is that very personality of Godhead. So here he's trying to explain to Yudhishthir, don't think Krishna to be an ordinary person. He is the supreme personality of Godhead, an original personality of Godhead. And then, coming on to 1922, it says that, yet despite his being equal and kind to everyone, he graciously comes before me while I am ending my life, for I am his unflinching servitor. So Bhishma Dev boldly is proclaiming that the Lord is coming in front of me. Why? Because I am his unflinching servitor. Did Bhishma Dev say I am his devotee? What he said, I am his servant. I am serving him constantly. So, sometimes we say, oh, we love the Lord, Lord is my friend, Lord is my, father, mother, everything. And sometimes you can have a person who is serving the Lord silently, he is washing some plates, or he's doing some emails for the Lord, for the service, or he's trying to, clean the temple, cook for the Lord, talk about the Lord. Anyone who serves the Lord, Krishna becomes obliged to them. So, even though they don't have this, so-called emotional attitude towards the Lord, or, way of reciprocating to the Lord in a very explicit extrovert fashion, Lord is available to their service at the first opportunity. So Krishna wants to serve anyone who wants to serve the Supreme Lord, because Krishna notes everything. We forget, but Krishna never forgets. Even a small thing we do, he just magnifies it like crazy. And you say, oh, no, but this person, here. And on top, you have, other associates of the Lord who will even magnify something even more. So here, in this specific purport, Prabhupada is saying that one should not, the last line of the purport, Prabhupada says that one should not try to establish the relation directly. There must be medium which is transparent and competent to lead us to the right path. So we should not try to, say that, oh, Krishna, I know Krishna, and Krishna knows me, and that's it. Prabhupada says that is not right, because here Bhishma Dev is also his consciousness of the sweetness of the transcendental humor, and therefore he likes to address the Lord as Vijay Shakhe, Partha Sakhe. So he is, so he knows that the Supreme Lord is unlimited and he's the Supreme Personality, but yet Bhishma Dev is very personally trying to speak to the Lord. by calling him as friend of Arjuna. And these are bodily relationships, right? Arjuna is a body, is a person in a bodily, in a body, and Yashoda Mai and all. But still, Bhishma Dev says that one should approach the Lord very personally, and it's important to try establishing relationship with the Lord with someone in between. And because they will be able to, if you want to become a cook of the Lord, you got to be dealing with Yashoda Mai, right? Radharani, right? They are eternal cooks for the Lord. You cannot say that, oh, I don't like them, but I'll still want to be the cook of the Lord. But hang on, it's better to have more devotees in between. It's always, the more devotees you have in between, it's much better, because the process is reverse. In the material world, everyone thinks, how can I be most closest to the boss, right? This is the material conception of life, because then I can have a direct say to the boss. In the spiritual world, it's not like that. The conception is, how much can I be most closest to the lowest servant of the boss? Because the boss is more involved with the lowest of the lowest of the lowest of the servants. The way Krishna sees the service done by Radharani, and the way Krishna does see the service done by an ordinary devotee stuck in the material world, in the lowest planetary system, but trying to sweep the floor, is exactly the same. So imagine what kind of gradation we are seeing here. But Lord sees all of them exactly the same. The personality of Godhead who appears in the mind of the devotee, this is one of the most highlighting verse in this whole chapter. If you can understand just this one verse, the perfection will be achieved. 1.9.23, and then I think there is 1.9.24 also, but 1.9.23 highlights everything. Bhaktya avesha mano yasmin vachayan nama kitayan tyajan kalevaram yogi muchyate kama karma bhi. The personality of Godhead who appears in the mind of the devotee by attentive devotion and meditation and by chanting of the holy name releases the devotee from the bondage of fruitive activities at the time of his quitting the material body. So 1.9.23. I'll read the purport, the beginning portions. Yoga means concentration of mind detached from all other subject matter. And actually, such a concentration is called samadhi, or 100% engagement in the service of the Lord. And one who concentrates his attention in that manner is called a yogi. So yogi is one who is constantly thinking of the Lord. Yogi is not one who is wearing those, half pants and, just a weird kind of hair. And this is the definition of a yogi, one who is constantly remembering the Lord and is constantly engaged in ninefold services to the Lord. By such practice of yoga or linking up in the service of the Lord, one is recognized by the Lord himself, as it is explained in Bhagavad Gita concerning the highest perfectional stage of samadhi. The Lord calls such a rare devotee the best amongst all the yogis. Such a perfect yogi is enabled by the divine grace of the Lord to concentrate his mind upon the Lord with a perfect consciousness. So if you have ever received a blessing, and if you really want to know, sometimes people ask a question, how do I know that I have spiritually progressed? How do I know that I have found the right guru? How do I know this is right? Here in Bhagavatam, you will find all answers. Bhagavatam is saying that if you have really been empowered and enabled and blessed by the Lord, what will happen? Such a perfect yogi is enabled by the divine grace of the Lord to concentrate his or her mind upon the Lord with a perfect sense of consciousness. So are you able to concentrate upon the beautiful form of the Lord? Do you think of the lotus eyes of the Lord? Do you think of the beautiful lips of the Lord? Brahmaji is also thinking of the eyelashes of the Lord. Bali Maharaj has seen everything, this whole body of the Lord. And the best and the topmost of the devotees are constantly meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord. May it be Lord Shiva who says, Tava eva charanam bhojam shreya kama nirashishaha. One who has given up everything in this world, who have become nirashisha. They have no expectations. They are willing to give up anything to focus their mind on the lotus feet of the Lord. This is Lord Shiva says. And similarly, Bhishma Dev was constantly meditating on the Supreme Lord And the way he meditated on Supreme Lord was also unique. His meditation was intense. He was a brahmachari. He had no, well, by that I didn't say it right. He had huge amounts of work in his hand because he was running a kingdom. He was a warrior, an administrator, and he was the most respected warrior all across the globe. There was no personality, including hundreds and millions of Arjunas, who could even come closer to Bhishma Dev. So Bhishma Dev was so much engaged in everything, but in spite of such heavy engagements, his consciousness was always on the lotus feet of the Lord. He worshipped the four-armed Narayan form as his deity. So in his house, he had four-armed Narayan. Throughout his life, whatever troubles he had gone through, he had nothing. He had no wife, no children. He might have had some affections, but his mind was constantly focused on the lotus feet of the Lord. So in the material existence, a living being has to endure the material conditions of threefold miseries, life after life, according to the fruitive work. Such material life is produced by material desires only. Devotional service to the Lord does not kill the natural desires of the living being, but they are applied in the right cause of devotional service. This qualifies the desire to be transferred to the spiritual sky. General Bhishma Dev is referring to a particular type of yoga called Bhakti Yoga, and he was fortunate enough to have the Lord directly in presence, in his presence before he quitted his material body. He therefore desired that the Lord stay before his view in the following verses. So he wanted Lord in his sight when he's leaving away. Intelligent, huh? He has read Bhagavad Gita. He knows. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. What is the verse? Anyone remembers? I'll give a clue. Antakale cha mameva.
Yeah.
Go on.
I know, and this is bit sorry.
No problem.
Sorry.
Antakale cha mameva, at the time of end of your life. Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram. This body is called kalevar. This body is called kalevar. Smaran muktva kalevaram. Smaran means remembering. Muktva means get liberated. Kalevaram, from this body. Whoever at the time of his death thinks of me and gives up his body comes to my eternal loving abode. So Bhishma Dev in next verses is just literally begging to the Lord for this. Before he says, may my Lord, who is four-handed and whose beautifully decorated lotus face with eyes as red as rising sun is smiling, kindly await me at that moment when I quit this material body. So that's why Bhishma Dev is a Mahajan. He knows the essence. He knows exactly what is right, and he is requesting the Lord to stay for the nick of the moment so that he can see the Lord. Not that he doesn't have a desire. That Prabhupada says in his purport. He says that Lord is equally satisfied even if the Lord devotee is equally satisfied even if the Lord desires him to go to hell. The only desire that a pure devotee entertains towards the last of this, towards the end, still further down, here we go. So the only desire that a pure devotee entertains is that he may always be in rapt attention with thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord. See how much importance is given in Bhagavatam to the lotus feet of the Lord. In the temple, people want to jump. There was a joke my mentor told me a long time ago. The two very thick friends, they went to the temple and it was too crowded and they both wanted to take the darshan. So one person, he jumped really high and, he saw the lotus face of the Lord. And the second friend, he didn't jump. He sat down. And because everyone else was standing, so he saw the lotus feet of the Lord. So, the friend said, look, I jumped and I saw the lotus face of the Lord. Second friend said, yeah, I didn't jump, but I saw the lotus feet of the Lord. So, the first friend said, oh my God, you won the competition. Essentially, you've seen the lotus feet of the Lord. So it's more important. Well, I can't really comment because I have no experience, but, it's lotus feet has been glorified dramatically in Srimad Bhagavatam. So the only desire that a pure devotee entertains is that he may always always be in rapt attention with thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord, regardless. Bhishma Dev wanted this much only. So at the time of death, he just wanted to see the Lord, his lotus face, his lotus feet, like that. that his mind be absorbed in thinking of the Lord, and that he passes away thus. That is the highest ambition of a pure devotee. He was not interested whether he will go into Vaikuntha or not, whether he will be sent to hell or not. He was just knowing that after this point, I don't know my next destination. It could be anywhere, it could be in any body, but at least when the Supreme Lord is present in front of me, let me not give up his lotus feet. The whole life has gone in preparation of this, is remembering the lotus feet of the Lord. And here this original personality of Godhead has been so kind and so merciful that he's present in front of Bhishma Dev at this time. So how could someone who has spent an entire lifetime for this one specific moment to have this association with the Lord at the time of death, let this happen, let the Lord go away from his vision. So Bhishma Dev, he is requesting just precisely that to the Lord. So, after hearing Bhishma Dev speak in that appealing tone, asked him in the presence of all the great rishis about the essential principles of various religious duties. So this is verse 25. And now, after Bhishma Dev had prayed to the Lord that please don't go away from my vision while I die, then Yudhishthira Maharaj says, okay, tell me now about all the wisdom that you have attained in your life. And the amount of wisdom that Bhishma Dev had attained, no one else had attained. It's amazing that the principles that he'd given Bhishma Dev, a lot of them are valid directly in the modern day world, directly. So he's spoken about all the varnas, the ashramas, so Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahman, how a Brahman should behave, how a Kshatriya should behave, about women, about what duties of a man are, what are the duties of a woman. Let me so I'm just going right to the end of purport of 1.9.27. 1.9.27. A little bit further down. 27 just started. Yes, right to the end of it. Further down. Yes. So from just a little bit up. There we go. As far as the women class are concerned, they are accepted as a power of inspiration for men. As such, women are more powerful than men. Mighty Julius Caesar was controlled by a Cleopatra. Such powerful women are controlled by shyness. Therefore, shyness is important for women. Once this control valve is loosened, women can create a havoc in the society by adultery. Adultery means production of unwanted children known as Varna Sankara, who disturb the world. And the last item taught by Bhishma Dev was the process of pleasing the Lord, which was his very last set of instructions in Bhishma Parva. It's not just a few instructions, it's quite elaborate, but it's the last part given to Yudhishthira Maharaj. Process of pleasing the Lord. We are all eternal servants of the Lord, and when we forget this essential part of our nature, we are put into material conditions of life. The simple process of pleasing the Lord, for the householders especially, is to install deity of the Lord at home. By concentrating on deity, one may progressively go on with the daily routine work. Worshipping the deity at home, serving the devotee, hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, residing in a holy place, and chanting the holy name of the Lord are all inexpensive items by which one can please the Lord. Thus, the subject matter was explained by the grandfather to his grandchildren. So, I would request if any one of you would have time, but only after you have finished reading Bhagavatam, not before you have finished all 12 cantos of reading Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. When you're done with all of those books, you can go to Bhishma Parva and read Bhishma Parva. The instructions are magnificent. He thus described the occupational duties of different orders and status of life, citing the instances from history, for he was himself well acquainted with the truth. Now he is, while Bhishma Dev was, speaking like this and giving all the instructions, suddenly on the 54th day, he saw that the month of February, March, I think, Uttarayan month is a month where a lot of people celebrate different festivals, like I know Maharashtrians celebrate Makar Sankranti. So on the day of Makar Sankranti, which is the month of Uttarayan, when the sun is actually, and in the Western world, you will see the days become longer now. So the nights are shorter, and from this time onwards, the day generally starts to begin, and spring season generally arrives. Around this time, Bhishma Dev could see sun is now starting to move towards north. And in this time, it is very auspicious time. So Bhishma Dev, wanted to give up his body. He had a blessing that he can give up the body at his own choosing, at the time of his own choosing. So he saw that the right time has now come. So he was waiting for Uttarayan. And it is said that anyone who dies during these months, they go to the higher planetary systems. And those who die during the lower months, generally they would go to the but this is not guaranteed. Depends on whether they were a devotee or not, like that. So Bhishma Dev, he saw the sun's course, ran into the northern hemisphere. This period is desired by mystics who die at their will. So this is a specific time for the mystics who can die at their will. So thereupon that man who spoke on the different subjects with thousands of meanings. So now, he was with wide open eyes. Bhishma understood that it's my time of going. Let me now not speak anything more to Yudhishthir. Let me now have the Supreme Lord captured. This is possibly on the 54th day. And so he, started to focus on Krishna, and he had worshipped Krishna throughout his life in the Narayan feature, in the four-handed feature, the Lord being dressed in the yellow silken garments. So he started to meditate like that. And, his specific meditation was, in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. This war was going on between Arjuna and Bhishma. This war became very, very bad and intense. What happened is Krishna had vowed that I will not pick up weapons in this battlefield. And, Krishna played a trick. Duryodhan was constantly inciting Bhishma Dev, and he was telling, look, Bhishma Dev, you are the grandfather of Pandavas, and maybe you are too affectionate to them. And so you are eating my food, my food from my palace, but actually you're not wanting to kill the Pandavas. You are just playing a game with us. So, in spite of hearing all of these things, Bhishma Dev said that, okay, tomorrow I will open my wrath on all the Pandavas. And tomorrow in the battlefield, I will open my wrath on all the Pandavas, and I will really affect them. I'll really kill them and all those things. So Krishna did an interesting thing. Bhishma Dev, he gave all his weapons to Duryodhan to keep it safe for the next day, the main day of the battlefield, where, Bhishma had vowed that on this day, I will really, really inflict harm on Pandavas. So he gave these weapons to Duryodhan to keep safe. And the general custom is that after the battlefield day is finished, the day of battle, in the evening, if the enemy comes to your house, then you have to treat them nicely. Even if the enemy comes to, this is an etiquette. So Krishna knew all of this. So Krishna told Arjun that let's just go visit Duryodhan. And Arjun kind of didn't gather why Krishna would suddenly ask, to go to Duryodhan's. And then, he told him that, look, Bhishma is going to be, bit nasty with us, could be tomorrow. Let's just go and ask Duryodhan for the weapons, which is being kept with Duryodhan actually. And Arjuna said, so, okay, so you want me to take the weapons of Bhishma, which is kept with Duryodhan, and why do you think he'll give it to me? So Krishna said, but because it is an etiquette, you will go as a guest, and no one says no to the guest. An uninvited guest is a representative of the Supreme Lord, and no one should no to an uninvited guest. This is an ancient Vedic tradition. And then Krishna gave another reasoning that once in a jungle, Duryodhan and Karna, they were caught. They were caught by some tribals. And they, although being great warriors, they showcased themselves as great. They couldn't release themselves. So, you and Yudhishthir had to go, and you all Pandavas release them from these tribal clan of people. So they owe a debt on you. They can't say no to you now, given that the perfect timing is you're reaching on perfect. So they did exactly that. They followed Krishna's suggestions, and there they took the weapons of Bhishma Dev. Duryodhan had to give it. So next morning, Bhishma Dev comes, and Bhishma Dev says, okay, give me my weapons. And Duryodhan, is like telling him all the story, what happened the previous evening. And now Bhishma Dev, being a proper Kshatriya, the best of the warriors in the entire universe, no millions of Arjunas couldn't foreststand Bhishma Dev. He became angry. Even in his old age, when he became angry, everything trembled. That day he vowed that today I'll break promise of Krishna, because he's broken my promise. He tried to break my promise. I will try and break promise of Krishna. And Krishna promised that I will never lift a weapon in the battlefield. So that day, when Bhishma Dev ran out, even without his weapons, even with his usual weapons, he pierced everything. He was so dangerous on that day that he pierced Krishna with his arrows, and Krishna was bleeding. Now again, don't think Krishna's blood is an ordinary blood. It was a transcendental. And when Bhishma was piercing, and on purpose he was doing this, he was not only hurting Arjuna, he was hurting Krishna on that day. So, and Arjun had no clues. With all his weapons, and his weapons were not ordinary weapons, they were Divya Astras, which means they were weapons collected from the heavenly kingdoms. After a lot of tapasya, Arjun couldn't do anything on that day. He saw the ferocious lion in front of him who was uncontrollable. And at one point in time, he had pierced Krishna's covers. In those days, they would put like golden and armors around hands, around the body. So Bhishma Dev had pierced all of them for Krishna, and he was really injuring Arjuna. And now there was a point where Krishna couldn't take this. And actually, as Krishna, he was hurting Krishna and he was hurting Arjuna, Krishna looked extremely stunningly beautiful. The mud from the hooves of the horses, there was all in the sky, and it had fallen on Krishna. His hairs were like curly and spread out, and his body was smeared with blood and mud, and Krishna looked extremely beautiful. And Bhishma was looking at this constantly, and this image of Krishna was fixed in his consciousness, this beautiful form of Krishna. And now the Krishna being extremely angry, and Bhishma Dev now wanting to kill Arjuna, Krishna became angry, and he basically got up from his chariot, which he vowed, I will not lift up a weapon. Now this is amazing duality. So Krishna started running like a lion runs towards an elephant. Elephant is formidable, but still lion is called the king of the jungle for a reason, right? Because when lion pounces, elephant has got no chance. So Krishna started to run like a lion towards Bhishma Dev, who was like an elephant. Now see this amazing thing. As soon as Krishna started to do that, Bhishma Dev put down all his weapons. He stood there like that. A Kshatriya is supposed to fight, but when he saw his Lord coming towards him, he knew that this was the perfection. He will soon make Krishna to break his vows. He kept down his weapons and he was waiting to be attacked by Krishna. And Krishna, with such great anger, he started running towards Bhishma Dev, and in his process, he lost his Angavastra. So this is described in these verses of Bhagavatam in this chapter. The Krishna started to look all the more beautiful. He was already beauty personified, but he started to look all the more beautiful. And as Krishna started running towards Bhishma Dev, he picked up this wheel of a chariot. And when Krishna does anything, Krishna gets a name, right? Krishna gets a new name. So this new name is a very beautiful name, and it's sung by many, many great poets again and again in their poetries. And this name of Krishna is called Rathanga Pani. Ratha means the cart, Pani means the wheel. So one who actually took the wheel of the cart in his hand and tried to hurl it on Bhishma Dev, that Supreme Lord is called Rathanga Pani. And great poets who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would also sing the songs of, they use this beautiful name of Krishna. So this form of Krishna, where Krishna is trying to hurl the wheel towards. So has Krishna broken his promise? Krishna actually didn't lift up a weapon. Wheel is not really a weapon. But at the same time, Krishna has broken his promise, because he's got down from his chariot. He's lifted. His intention was to, and in these verses, Bhishma Dev is saying that this Lord is so merciful that he was willing to break his own promise to save his devotee. To save Arjuna, Krishna was willing to break his own promise of him not lifting a weapon, because Krishna did lift a weapon. So at the time of death, this scene of Krishna being extremely beautiful, exquisitely beautiful, in slight anger, with blood smeared on his body, face looking beautiful, the hair spread, and the mud on his arms. Bhishma Dev was meditating on this at the time of his death. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajate antakalevaram. So at the time of that, as you are thinking about me, that destination you will achieve. So this is the eternal meditation of Bhishma Dev on the beauty of the Supreme Lord Krishna. And this is what he's prayed. He's praying to the Lord. He says, let me just go to those verses. He said, therefore, that man who spoke on different subjects with thousands of meanings and who fought on thousands of battlefields and protected thousands of men stopped speaking, and being completely free from all bondage, withdrew his mind from everything else and fixed his wide open eyes upon the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who stood before him four-handed, dressed in yellow garments that glittered and shined. By pure meditation, looking at Lord Shri Krishna, he at once was freed from all material inauspiciousness and was relieved from bodily pains caused by the arrow wounds. Thus, all external activities of his senses at once stopped, and he prayed transcendently to the controller of all living entities while quitting his material body. Bhishma Dev said, let me now invest my thinking, feeling, and willing, which were so long engaged in different subjects and occupational duties, in the all-powerful Lord Shri Krishna. He is always self-satisfied, but sometimes being the leader of devotees, he enjoys transcendental pleasure by descending to the material world, although for him, only material world is created. Sri Krishna is the intimate friend of Arjuna. He appeared in this. Okay, we move further. May his glittering yellow dress and his lotus face, covered with the paintings of sandalwood pulp, be object of my attraction, and may I not desire fruitive results. So he's asking that I may not desire any fruitive results. Because at the time of that, if you still have any desire for fruitive results, oh, I wanted to visit Hawaii, I couldn't do this in this lifetime. Gone. Like gone. You know, that's a flash of a moment when you leave the body, and any desire, anything to eat, anything to do, you know, it should not be there. This verse, I think it is 934. On the battlefield, when Sri Krishna attended Arjuna out of friendship, the flowing hair of Lord Krishna turned ashen due to the dust raised by the hoofs of the horses. And because of his labor, beads of sweat wetted his face. So there was sweat all over his face. All these decorations, intensified by the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows, were enjoyed by him. So Krishna was enjoying it. Let my mind thus go unto Sri Krishna. So he is very vividly and this is why you know Sachinandan Maharaj says this often, and I feel the same. Bhagavatam is a movie. It can show you things beyond what an author can show, an ordinary author can show. So here, you know, he's Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti in the purport Prabhupada says, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, a great acharya and devotee in the humor of conjugal love with the Lord, remarks very saliently in this regard. He says that the wounds created on the body of the Lord by the sharpened arrows of the Bhishma Dev were as pleasing to the Lord as biting of a fiancé who bites the Lord's body directed by a strong sense of sex desire. Such biting by the opposite sex is never taken as a sign of enmity, even if there is a wound on the body. Now, this is beyond my explanation power because I'm not purified. But you know, please read the purport. You will understand the depth of this transcendental humor where Bhishma is actually injuring Krishna, but you know, Krishna is really enjoying it. In obedience to the command, so we're reading next verse 35. In obedience to the command of his friend Lord Shri Krishna entered the arena battlefield of Kurukshetra between the soldiers of Arjuna and Duryodhan, and while there he shortened the lifespans of the opposite party by his merciful glance. So wherever Krishna looked, the lifespans were reducing. This was simply done by his looking at the enemy. Let my mind be fixed upon that Krishna. You know, eventually he is remembering gopis. Is basically, you know, praying again that may his lotus feet always remain object of my attraction, because he's saying that whenever Arjuna was in trouble, you know, you gave him Bhagavad Gita. Now I am in trouble, please show me your lotus feet. Let my mind be on your lotus feet. He's literally having that conversation with the Lord in his prayers. Fulfilling the, so we are reading 37th verse. It says, fulfilling my vow and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up its wheel and ran toward me hurriedly, just as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garment on the way. Krishna, couldn't remember. When you are into some action, you yourself can't remember what happens, right? Your dress falls, or you're something, because you are so much tuned to doing that activity. But because Bhishma was focusing on the beauty of the Supreme Lord, on the devotion of the Supreme, Bhishma remembers even the slightest of the details of how Krishna was looking at that time. When Krishna's outer garment fell, Bhishma noted it. And he is saying this after so many months and years, right at the time of his death. This situation happened long ago. But the meditation of a devotee is such that when they find the Lord in this perfect situation, they always want to meditate and glorify the Lord like this. They always remember it. May he, Lord Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead who awards salvation, be my ultimate destination. On the battlefield, he charged me as if angry because of the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows. His shield was scattered and his body was smeared with blood due to the wounds. So he really inflicted Krishna with some joy, with his arrows. And he is repeatedly saying, at the moment of death, let my ultimate, so we are reading 39th verse, at the moment of death, let my ultimate attraction to be Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. I concentrate my mind upon the chariot driver of Arjuna, who stood. Now this is the scene, this is the camera moment, this is the aha moment, where he wants his body to be transitioned to the next destination. This is his state of existence and his consciousness. He says, I concentrate my mind upon the chariot driver of Arjuna, who stood with a whip in his straight right hand and a bridle of rope in his left, who was very careful to give protection to Arjuna's chariot by all means. Those who saw him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original forms after death. Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Shri Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love, this is the most important point also, attracted the damsels of Brajdhama. So Bhishma Dev is really the perfect Mahajan also, The damsels imitated the characteristic movement of the Lord after his disappearance from the Rasa dance. So here, Bhishma, at the time of his death, he is remembering Rasa dance. When Krishna disappeared, the gopis were in extreme distress. And he is saying the same thing to Krishna after so many years. This happened when Krishna was young. Now Krishna is almost like 120 years of age. But, every Mahajan wants to glorify the Mahajan who is, or the people or the devotees who are above him. And here, Bhishma Dev, let's just read the purport. We are running out of time, but I just wanted to read this purport. By intense ecstasy in loving service, the damsels of Brajbhumi attained qualitative oneness with the Lord by dancing with him on an equal level, embracing him in nuptial love, smiling at him in joke, and looking at him with a loving attitude. The relation of the Lord with Arjuna is undoubtedly praiseworthy for devotees like Bhishma Dev, but the relation of gopis with the Lord is still more praiseworthy because of their still more purified loving service. So you see, there is this gradation even amongst devotees. And you will read, if you happen to read Brihad Bhagavatamrit, you will understand the different grades of devotees. But here really, Bhishma Dev is remembering at the time of his death. You only remember the most important persons at the time of your death. And who is Bhishma remembering really? Gopis. Who is Bhishma remembering? Krishna. So it tells a lot, about Mahajan and why he was such a perfect Mahajan. So remaining verses, he's just remembering all the pastimes with the Supreme Lord. Now I can meditate with full concentration. So we are reading verse 42. Now I can meditate with full concentration upon that one Lord Shri Krishna, now present before me, because now I have transcended the misconceptions of duality in regard to his presence in everyone's heart. Even in the hearts of mental speculators, he is in everyone's heart. The sun may be perceived differently, but the sun is one. So, is mentioning about Brahma Jyoti and even about the mudhas, that even in the heart of the foolish people, Krishna is present. It says Krishna is both Brahma Jyoti and localized Paramatma, but in Brahma Jyoti or Paramatma there is no Krishna or sweet relations with Krishna. In his personal feature, Krishna is both Paramatma, Parthasarthi and Shama Sundar of Vrindavan. So he is talking about personal feature of the Lord. And really, everything about Bhishma Dev is very personal, because he remembers even the way the hair of the Lord was, how his body was, where the mud was spread, whether his garment was, how his garment was looking, what was the color of the garment, what was the day on the battlefield. The details can only come when you are personal. If you are impersonal, you will slowly see that person will divulge away from the details. So details can only happen when someone is extremely personal. So thus, he, in the presence of the Lord, in the time of Uttarayan, Bhishma Dev actually left this world. And it's one of the most auspicious days. It's, he's a perfect Mahajan. He meditated upon gopis. He did his duties perfectly during his lifetime. He was a brahmachari. He, to save his father, he took this vow of brahmacharya, that, he will never get married. And that pastime is different. I can't go into that at this point in time. When Bhishma Dev left, all present there became silent like birds at the end of the day. Like every single saintly person who was there, they all became silent, because Bhishma Dev as a pure devotee of the Lord entered the spiritual realm in one of the Vaikuntha planets, where the Lord in his eternal form of Parthasarthi predominates over the unconditioned living beings. So this is where he went, in a Vaikuntha planet, where Krishna is in this form of Parthasarthi, meaning the chariot driver of Arjuna, specific pastime. And there he is predominates over unconditioned living beings who are constantly engaged in the service of the Lord. The love and affection which binds the Lord and the devotee are exhibited in the case of Bhishma Dev. Bhishma Dev never forgot the Lord in his transcendental feature as Parthasarthi, and the Lord was present personally before Bhishma Dev while he was passing to the transcendental world. This is the highest perfection of human life. I think there I would like to stop, because further, there was flowers falling from the sky. All the demigods, they put flowers on Bhishma Dev. They were all very sad, but it was also a great day for celebration. And Prabhupada says the respect and recognition of Bhishma Dev are never to be imitated by artificial means, as it has become a fashion to observe the so-called Jayanti ceremony. So we have something called Bhishma Jayanti. So you should not, create a Jayanti of Naren Bhai Patel Jayanti, or Henry Jayanti, in the name of a great person. You should never create a Jayanti for an ordinary man, is what Prabhupada is. Bhishma Dev was unique in his activities, and his passing away to the kingdom of God is also very unique. It can't be imitated. I have been to the place where in Kurukshetra, where Bhishma Dev was actually lying on the bed of arrows. It is called Ban Ganga. The modern day Ban Ganga is actually different to where it was originally, because the original place is now lost amongst the villages, because the geography bit moved. But if you happen to visit Kurukshetra, then this is the place to go. It's called Ban Ganga. With that, I'd like to stop, and please forgive me for going over time. We have a few minutes left if anyone has got questions.
There is one question in the chat from Hema Mataji. Hema, are you there? Would you like to ask?
Yes. With Yudhishthira Maharaj, did he know that he was the incarnation of Yamadev, so one of the Mahajans?
So yes, Dharmaraj. So, these are eternal personalities, all of the Pandavas. And I think he knew that he was, in the early stages, they were all differently empowered. And someone who has different powers to ordinary living beings, they become aware of their abilities. But yet he was, he was always being tested, right, for his qualifications. So you may have power, but you need to learn how to utilize that power, and for that you might have to go test. So his father was constantly testing him also. So Pandavas, they are eternal. When someone is playing a role with the Supreme Lord, then they are playing the role fully, should I say. So they forget, they have problems, they do things. So no one knows that, yes, I'm in this play and I know that I'm in this play. Actually I'm someone else, but in this play I'm someone else. It's not like that. They are in the play and they are in the situation, so they know everything. They were having this problem. They don't pay it partially. Even Krishna doesn't pay it partially. So he pays obeisances to Yudhishthir Maharaj. If his devotees are hurt, Krishna is hurt. And, he's not artificially hurt. He's really hurt. Like that. It might be difficult to understand, but this is the nature of the play of the Supreme Lord. It's difficult for a conditioned soul to completely grasp the depths. But thanks to Prabhupada and thanks to Srimad Bhagavatam, it gives us some visuals, it gives us some hints.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Vamsi. Yes, there is a hand up. Indulekha Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
Well,
Krishna.
thank you very much for this nice discourse, very well explained. Prabhuji, I've read somewhere that Bhishma Dev, he fell on the 10th day of the battle, right? And the battle lasted 18 days.
Yes.
So 10 days to go to 18 is 8 days left. And then Yamaraj came after 50 days that he has been lying. That plus the 8 is 58 days. But Bhishma Dev himself, he said that those 58 days seem like thousands of years for him. But I don't know if because he I think he passed away he left his body on Makar Sankranti, which is usually mid-January.
Yes.
So anyway, that is there, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong here. And during his talk to the Pandavas, he also recited the
Vishnu Sahasranam.
Vishnu Sahasranam. And when you just said Rathanga Panir, I remembered it's in there. It's in Vishnu Sahasranam. Rathanga Panir Hakshobaiti Netram. Trisama Samagati Sameti Kavacham. Ananda Parabrahmeti Yodihi Ritukshudarshana Kala Bandhana. So that is there, the name is there. So thank you. Yes. I didn't know that name. Now I've learned it. And Lord Krishna, there was no one, as you said, as a great warrior as Bhishma Dev himself. And Lord Krishna wanted that Virya Rasa. He wanted to have that chivalry, like exchange. And Bhishma Dev was the only one who could satisfy that desire. So every arrow that he was shooting on the Lord was like flowers, garlands of flowers, and the Lord accepted him like that.
Yeah.
So yes, Prabhuji, thank you very much. It was very nice, and Bhishma Dev is one of my most loved characters in the Mahabharata.
Mine too. He's just amazing. One thing I did you by your by words, that one thing that also came to my mind was, Krishna also wanted to show that no matter how powerful someone might be, you can't win if you are on the wrong side. Bhishma Dev was the most powerful personality, and still, he lost. And internally, Bhishma Dev knew all of it. He knew everything about this, and yet he chose to continue fighting. He could be, for the rest of his existence, he could be just blamed. Oh, he sided with Duryodhan. He sided with the wrong party. That's just bad. How can he be a Mahajan? He didn't care for any of those things. What he really cared for is for the Lord, his pastime, and so Bhishma Dev, in that sense, Krishna used him like Bali Maharaj, like Prahlad Maharaj. Krishna used him to set an example, and so Krishna chastised him, chastised Bhishma Dev. He had to go through this intense pain. I think Bhishma mentioned that 54 days was a constant. Every morning they would come, take instructions from Bhishma Dev, and then every evening they would go. And then on the 54th day, I think, when the exact time of Uttarayan had occurred, then at that time Bhishma Dev left. So he's also one of my favorite personalities when chivalry is concerned,
Yes.
But the most beautiful part of his entire chivalry thing is, his description of the beauty of the Supreme Lord and examples of the acharyas, which I couldn't go into. But please read the purports. The real joy will come when you read the purports. So his description of the beauty of the Lord is very much different to the description of the beauty of Lord which we are generally used to hearing. And so he is related to Lord in this mood of Parthasarthi. So he went into the final destination of Vaikuntha where Krishna is in that form, for eternity. So it's just unbelievable. For entire of his life, he also had to go through a lot of pains. In his life, he didn't get married. He had a lot of problems. His grandsons were trying to kill each other. He was always being blamed. He made a mistake by kidnapping Ambika, Ambalika, and then Shikhandi came back. Amba came back as Shikhandi. Yeah. So he had to go a lot. He had to go through a lot. Duryodhan was constantly on the battlefield. In the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Duryodhan starts with taunting. He starts saying, okay, our army is, even though the Pandavas' army is well protected, we have got Bhishma. So you all please ring fence Bhishma. He is trying to tell Bhishma that we will protect you from all sides. You are old now. Don't worry, we will give you protection. And we know that you're not going to. So he's taunting Bhishma Dev right from chapter 1. And in Mahabharata also you will see this. And you can learn so much from Bhishma, interactions of Bhishma Dev and the Supreme Lord. So the activities of the Supreme Lord and his interactions with his devotees, specifically the pastime where Bhishma Dev is meditating so deep that Krishna can't move. And he's not responding to Yudhishthir. So it's a very intimate pastime, and Prabhupada says that he is a unique devotee and his pastime is also very unique. Nonetheless, he is one of the Mahajans. He remembers gopis of Vrindavan in Ras Leela at the time of his death. So that's why for me, he becomes an extremely special Mahajan because he is always grateful. So his chivalry is mixed with this loving description of the Supreme Lord. Thank you, Mataji.
In his stuti, he mentioned all these. In his Bhishma stuti, he mentioned all these that we are saying right now.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you, Satyajit Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for the nice class. Very much. I really loved your class. Prabhuji, I have a confusion regarding the Vaikuntha planet in which the presiding deity is Parsarthi. So in that planet, Krishna is forever driving the chariot of Arjuna and fight is going on.
Yes, that's right.
That's so right.
There are unlimited Vaikuntha planets in which different forms of Krishna exist. And Bhishma Dev, he's eternal associate of the Lord. And this pastime of the Lord fighting, battlefield of Kurukshetra, Krishna and Arjuna and Pandavas and Yudhishthir Maharaj and Bhishma Dev is eternally going on in that Vaikuntha planet.
So this fighting, this Kurukshetra war is eternally going on in the Vaikuntha planet.
Yes. Basically, Krishna wants to give you the flavor that you are in. Chivalry is the flavor that Bhishma Dev is in. He wants to give you full experience of the chivalry. Just as Yashoda Mai is eternally cooking for Krishna, eternally loving Krishna. Radharani is eternally having pastimes. Lalita Sakhi, Vishaka Sakhi, and Gopas, Balram, they are all having eternal pastimes in a Golok Vrindavan. Like that, Krishna has unlimited planets, and in all of these planets, he has these forms to reciprocate with his devotees.
So all those warriors who died by the hands of Parsarthi, they were that same planet, Parsarthi Vaikuntha planet?
Maybe you'll have to ask those people. I don't know. Before dying, they didn't tell me actually. But from scriptures, I can understand that they had auspicious destination because they all went to Vaikuntha because they saw Krishna at the time of death. Anyone who sees Krishna, it said that, as Krishna was glancing upon them, he was shortening their lives. That's amazing, Anywhere he glanced and he was constantly, Bhishma Dev says he was constantly protecting Arjuna on the battlefield. So Arjuna's chariot was, constantly attacked. In Mahabharata, there is descriptions of, Arjuna and his horses being extremely tired. And at one point in time, I think there is a thunderstorm of arrows come on Arjuna. Krishna Dharma's Mahabharata mentions this in the pastime of Jayadratha. That no one can see anything and only arrows can be seen, and everyone is now fearful of the whole thing, but somehow Arjuna comes out of this cloud of arrows. So Lord's pastimes are amazing. Krishna at that time, he, when I visited Kurukshetra, and this was an amazing thing I read in Mahabharata. At one point, horses were extremely tired, and Arjuna was also extremely, he was fighting constantly. So Krishna threw an arrow in the air. Krishna told Arjuna that, look, no more fighting. Horses are tired. Right in the middle of a battlefield, Krishna is worried about the horses. He's not worried about Arjuna and the battlefield and enemies. He's worried about the horses. So he tells Arjuna to throw an arrow in the air, create a pond, create a cover on top of pond with the arrows, and let Krishna massage the feet of the horses. And Krishna massages the feet of the horses. So in Kurukshetra, when you travel there is a place, and I was looking for this place really badly, where Krishna actually massaged the feet of the horses, and that this pond was created for them to relax. Okay, I'll stop there. Any more questions? Do we even have time for questions?
Okay, thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Excellent, wonderful class. Thank you everyone for joining. Just to mention, on Tuesday we have our recitation class on chapter 10. That's departure of Lord Krishna for Dwarika. It's 36 texts. So if anyone wishes to read the English translation, please raise your hands. And on Thursday we've got Sham Wallabi Gopi Mataji, who will be reciting that particular chapter. Sorry, not reciting, but giving that particular chapter on Thursday. So please join us. Again, on Tuesday, we'll be finishing off, hopefully, the quiz, the exciting chapters of 4 and 5. So please come along with your pens and paper. And we've got also a special stuti from Induleka Mataji. So please join us. Have a great weekend. Hare Krishna.
There is, one more question from Kashmira. Can I take it?
Oh, sure, yes. Sorry, I just missed it.
My apologies. Go on.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, thank you so much for, it was a wonderful wonderful stories to hear. And how you mentioned if you think of Krishna, then you get elevated. Does that mean even if someone is not a devotee, but at the time of death, if he so happened to think of Krishna, does that mean he is blessed?
He is 100% blessed, Mataji, without doubt. Any thought of Krishna is not by chance. There is no chance in this material world. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that nothing happens by chance. There is no such thing as luck. If you were thinking that, oh, you were lucky to get something, no. You have got something because of a reason. So if in someone's mind, Krishna has come light at the last moment of his life, that means that person must have done amazing volumes of devotional service, which no one is aware of. When Juhu temple was constructed, there was this great demoniac person, Mr. Nair, who, brought in like goons to destroy the temple. And at that time, there was one person who was a Kshatriya spirit. And this person, he, these people had come with 10, 15 goons. And this Kshatriya person, he said, okay, you all come. I will bring my rifle. I have got 10 sons. Ask everyone to come out. We will not leave any one of you. We will shoot all of you out. Dare you touch our temple. And, this spirit Prabhupada observed in this person, and being fearful of this person, all those goons ran away. They didn't harm the temple because of this fighting spirit of this person. This person never chanted anything. He was not chanting, but he protected the temple of the Lord. And more than that, he pleased Prabhupada. So when he died, I think in early 2000, my wife was mentioning, his family members were saying that in his dreams, he could see Prabhupada. He was speaking about Prabhupada. So Prabhupada had personally come to deliver him, to take him to the next destination, because he helped a saintly person. So when someone gets an opportunity at the time of death to think about Krishna or a pure soul like Prabhupada, you know, like the previous acharyas, then it is not by chance.
Oh, thank you. That's very reassuring, because I don't have much time